Alexander had reached adulthood, yet still resided with his companions in Mesa's palace under Aristotle's guidance, who was shaping him into more than a mere conqueror like his father, but a philosopher king. One day, the arrival of Philip's retinue, Alexander's father and Macedonia's ruler, was proclaimed.
"I thank Aristotle for his efforts in crafting a man no Greek could call barbaric, but now it's time to release him to the world."
"My lord, I beg just one more year. He has much yet to grasp."
"I see your care, but life's harshness also teaches lessons of worth."
Alexander departed with his father to inspect his forces. The young prince was thrilled. The chance to fight beside his father on battlefields had at last come.
"Alexander, meet the Hetaroi, the king's companions, the elite of Macedonian cavalry. I now grant you command of the world's most feared cavalry unit."
The king's companions comprised aristocratic sons, holding the Macedonian army's most esteemed ranks.
"Alexander, understand that our phalanxes are the anvil, and the cavalry the hammer, whose mighty blows can break any foe."
After taking command, Alexander was welcomed by his new officers, many his childhood friends, who also served as his personal guard. Alexander began shouldering ever greater duties under his father's oversight. Seeing his son's intellect and resolve, the king prepared him for the future, assigning him vital administrative and military roles in the kingdom. Among the weightiest tasks given to Alexander was governing Macedonia in his absence. When Philip set out to campaign against Thracian tribes near the Hellespont, he left the young prince to oversee political and military affairs. This was a defining moment in Alexander's growth, for he was no longer just Aristotle's bright pupil or a promising heir. He was now an acting sovereign, testing his skills in leadership and command. With the king away, Alexander received official power in the realm as regent and keeper of the royal seal. Philip bestowed on him the royal seal, a ring signifying his right to act in the king's name. This honor affirmed his place as direct successor and ensured his orders during the regency bore Philip II's authority. It fell to Alexander to maintain internal peace, manage the kingdom's governance, and handle diplomatic and military matters. To many Macedonian nobles, accepting such power in a youth was hard, but Alexander soon proved himself equal to the task. His mother, Queen Olympias, sought to widen her sway by counseling and steering her son in some political choices. Ambitious and resolute, Olympias viewed Alexander's regency as a chance to bolster her own courtly influence. Her meddling, however, started to stain the young prince's repute. Alexander's foes and the more traditional Macedonian nobles spread whispers that Macedonia's ruler was swayed by a woman, a notion that stung the pride of the warrior aristocracy deeply. The belief that a king must be strong and self-reliant made such claims heavy against Alexander, even if his decisions were sound and shrewd. Noticing the harm of these barbs, Alexander began distancing himself from his mother's sway in governance and martial affairs, striving to reaffirm his command in the nobles' eyes, and showed he ruled with firmness. While Alexander held the regency, the Illyrian Maidi tribe in the northern mountains saw a chance to defy Macedonian rule. The Maidi thought Alexander's youth and Philip's absence offered a tactical edge to rebel and extend their frontier influence. Without delay, Alexander rallied the garrison troops Philip had left in Macedonia and marched against the Maidi, launching his first solo military venture. This was a critical juncture, showcasing his promise as a commander and his knack for strategic calls in tense moments. He swiftly mustered the army and advanced decisively, intent on crushing the threat before it grew. Facing the Maidi, Alexander displayed tactical cunning by splitting his forces into two fronts, encircling the rebels and cutting off escape. he first deployed skirmishers to taunt the foe and draw them to open ground, where his disciplined infantry could engage with advantage. After tiring the Maidi with rapid, calculated strikes, Alexander led the final charge with his cavalry in person. Using the rugged terrain to funnel the rebels to a weak spot, he breached their lines and forced a retreat to their chief stronghold. With the upper hand secured, Alexander ordered a systematic siege. He employed makeshift assault towers and scouts to pinpoint wall vulnerabilities. After a fierce clash, his troops broke through and stormed the fort. The fight within was intense, but the Maidi, disordered and trapped, were soon overpowered. Post-victory, Alexander claimed the city and founded a Macedonian outpost there, ensuring the northern border's calm and reinforcing the kingdom's hold. He ousted the locals and established Alexandropolis. This act bore deep meaning, as it was rare for a 16-year-old prince to name or found a city after himself, signaling his ambition and regal self-view. This founding foreshadowed a tactic Alexander would repeat in his Asian conquests, establishing many cities in his name. By naming the city for himself, Alexander echoed the custom of great conquerors who marked victories with new settlements. This move reflected his vision of grandeur and his claim to be more than Philip II's son. This triumph bolstered his standing as a military figure and warned Macedonia's foes that, even without Philip II, the kingdom stood under strong, resolute leadership. The successful Maidi campaign was key to Alexander's repute among the Macedonian army and nobles. No longer just Philip's heir, he was now an emerging leader, proving early his readiness for far greater trials ahead. Per Plutarch, Philip II received news of Alexander's success with mixed pride and wariness. The young prince's martial triumph affirmed his leadership capacity, vital for Macedonia's future king. Yet Alexander naming Alexandropolis after himself showed a daring Philip couldn't overlook. City naming was a privilege of mighty kings and victors, and for a 16-year-old prince, this hinted at an ambition that might one day rival his father's rule. This blend of pride and caution would define Philip and Alexander's bond in years ahead, marked by both acclaim and rivalry. Though pleased with his son's prowess, Philip knew he was raising an heir who might someday challenge his own dominance.